Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, red.olaughlin here, Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I'm honored to have a repeat guest. She's been gone now a few months and came back. Catherine Grant, well known for her poetry. She's a Scotswoman, and I really love the accent. So please join us, Catherine.
Thank you very much. That was really nice.
Yeah. I've had the opportunity to listen to the English and the Irish and the Scottish and Australian and South African and New Zealand. And I mean, there's all bits and pieces all tied in there. But when it comes down to it, I really like that little brogue there with the Scottish and to some degree with the Irish. But anyway,
Yes,
as we continue
Irish.
our conversation today, people are going to have a choice to fall in love with your accent.
Oh gosh. I hope so.
You're well known for your poetry. Why poetry?
I've always written poetry since I was probably about 7 years of age, maybe even younger than that. But yes, I like poetry. My parents liked poetry, which was quite good. But my dad always said, "Why don't you write some poetry? You seem to have a strange way of looking at things. It's a bit magical." So I started to write some poetry and short stories.
Now, does your poetry always have rhyming words with it, or is
Yes.
it conveying? Okay, so you add that whatever phrase needs to rhyme with something above it. How do you master that? I find that very difficult.
It's imperative that you do if you want it to rhyme, but you can't take any of the meaning away from the story you're telling, because the story is contained in the poetry. The story is the poetry. So it's very important not to allow something to rhyme just because it rhymes. It has to have the meaning of what's come before and the whole that keeps it all together. But I've had no.
That's what I was trying to. Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure. You have line. You have something you want to rhyme, and okay, I'm telling a story, but I got to keep my rhyming word in context with the story so that the story continues. So your mind has to be operating in two different planes, one to tell the story and one to figure out which words do I want to rhyme in this stanza. Is that kind of how it works? Or
I have quite a short verse here that I'd like to read, and you can tell me whether you think the meaning or that you take from it is contained in every line by the fact that things are rhyming or not.
Love to hear it.
Okay, put my glasses on again, I think. Okay, it really sums up what I do with the poetry and why I do it. Okay, shadows of the things that could have been, consigned to roam the memories of dream. Forevermore, tomorrow, now today, where heart and soul reside to have their say. Recorded on a thought for all of time. Incarnate, namely lifetimes, see its signs. Perhaps a route that challenges the rest. Sets strength and evolution many tests. Then in the wake of retrospect, we see how different ideas work to set us free. Forevermore, the tapestry once woven creates the film all humankind has chosen. Thank you.
Interesting. I'll be one of the first to tell you that poetry and poems are not in my ability to write, and in many cases, I have difficulty understanding. But I looked at some of the words you were using, and the tapestry was one that really caught my attention as a word, not something that we think about with regard to our human brain, but in the way you used it, I think it was a very well chosen word.
Yes, it was, because I believe everyone, of course, is living their life. They are weaving their own tapestry, and each person has a slightly different pattern in the tapestry, but it's still a tapestry. And yeah.
And our experiences determine the colors, the thicknesses, the textures.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so you started out, your dad encouraged you to write, and
yes.
When did you write your first poetry book?
My first poetry book was written about 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Yes.
And then you just followed on. Was that the rhyme, reason, and rhythm, or was that a different book?
Well, rhyme, reason, and rhythm is lots of poetry, but with short stories also.
But you have 3 volumes to that, one with the rhyme, one with the reason, and one with the rhythm.
That's correct, yes.
So you actually made 3 books out of that one particular series.
But there's something like 600 poems, and there's probably about 15, 20 short stories throughout as well, between the 3, rhyme, reason, and rhythm.
Are these true stories?
Yes, some of them, most of them are. Yes.
About you,
because
your family, your journeys?
They're about the journeys that I took, probably started to take 25 years ago, that led me to all sorts of places, which allowed me to write various poems about what happened. And yeah, so most of them are true, definitely.
So
but they're based.
Go ahead.
Sorry. It all came from the dream that I'm talking about that I had when I was very, very young. But when I got to the age of about 21, I had a friend who was very, very interested in lots of Buddhist things and all that sort of thing. But they had a book that I thought looked very interesting. And it was a book about Chartres Cathedral in France. But I opened the book and there were probably about half a dozen black and white photographs taken of the place, just over a period of about 2 years. And I saw the photographs and I thought, the place in this photograph is definitely the place in my dream. So I don't believe it's just a dream anymore. Anyway, I set about finding out more about this place, the Commanderie de Sœurs in the Eure-et-Loire region of France, and went there. And the woman who owned the place came out and said, "Vous avez déjà vu?" I said, "No, I'm here because I want to find out the history of this place." I was also writing history at the time. And this seemed like a very good cover, if you want, that didn't involve me having to explain why I was there, that it was all based on a dream. Nevertheless, the woman very kindly said to me, "Come into the house, have some coffee, and we'll talk." Anyway, I did. And she said, "You have been here before." I said, "No, I haven't." She says, "You have." I said, "No." I said, "But I'll tell you, I did have a dream about this place. This place is in a dream that I've been having for years." And that's when I started to dig a bit deeper. I wanted to know what the story was there. Why was I dreaming about a place I'd never been to? It didn't seem the right thing to be doing. It seemed a bit strange. But as a result, I had lots of poetry that came to mind that had to be written. I just had to write them. And I was dealing with the lady who owned the commanderie. We were in contact for a couple of years after that. But led me to different areas of France, first of all, and then across the border into Spanish Catalonia. And that took some time too. The poetry was written all during this time, the stories too, but yeah, it was very interesting.
I'm trying to imagine if I were a poet and trying to look at something through a poet's eyes, and I visit someplace. Well, my non-poet eyes, here's a postcard. Wish you were here. Great place. Yeah, maybe if I were writing a blog, I would go a little bit more into detail. If I were a fiction or non-fiction writer, depending, maybe a travel author or maybe somebody trying to set up a murder scene or whatever, I would be describing a little bit more and more detail. But from a poet's eyes, I'm seeing the same thing, but it's being woven into a tapestry different than the occasional photographer or traveler or writer. It's actually a very unique perspective on what you're seeing, and the stories that you hear or the stories that or your life that you experience are in fact really elevated to a level that is difficult on a really good day for a writer, extremely difficult for somebody who's a non-writer. And so I have to really and truly applaud you for your innate abilities, your skills, your talents to just go somewhere, see something, hear a story, experience something, and voila, there you I'm not gonna say vomit out, but you create poetry from that. That I just find to be amazing.
Oh, thank you. But it was a very, very emotional journey I took with the recognition of the place that I'd never been to. And the poetry was, I suppose, another emotional sort of journey that I took because of it. And I didn't want to end up with something that I wasn't going to be able to look at and say, I like this or I agree with this. I was learning also. It was a voyage of discovery for me as much as anything else. But
did you take any creative writing classes for poetry or have some trainers, personal trainers, or did you just do a lot of reading?
No,
Just
nobody.
All natural.
It all came out of my head. I sat down with a notebook, paper notebook, not a computer thing, but a paper notebook, and I would write screeds and screeds of poetry. It just came out so easily, and it was very important for me to do that because I felt there was something else I had to do. I'm still on the journey. I'm not, it hasn't stopped. It's still going on at this moment. I don't know what the end product of it will be, but it's part of the life. It's part of the reason I believe I'm here is the poetry, and also something else to do with something down in France that still has to be dealt with, but I'm not quite sure what it is yet. When I am, I'll be there. It's
Well, I'm constantly learning. I belong to a writers group in Houston prior to COVID, and they would bring in different people and we talk about things. And one day they brought in somebody who was into this creative writing, poetry, poems, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm here. I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can. Let me see what I can learn. And the first thing she did was pull up this huge bag and start handing out things to everybody. And everybody got 3 items that just totally unrelated. And we had 15 minutes to write about those items and relate them to each other and be able to stand up and give our, a 2-minute dialogue. And I learned more in that one event than all the other events that I went to that previous year because it was totally new to me, something I'd never done, something I think I did a pretty decent job on, but it forced my brain to think differently. How am I going to relate this string to this whatever over here? And in the process of looking at the two and trying, as you say, develop a story, because the story is the way you connect everything. And yes, I was able to do it, but it took a lot of effort and I was uncomfortable. I'm sure that in your case, the comfort levels are a non-issue. You're just trying to maximize the not the tension, the core of the story. What are you trying to get to your audience? What is that feeling you want to leave them with? Because we're dealing more with feelings in poetry than we are doing with thoughts and ideas. Is that a fair statement?
Definitely. Feelings. It's all about emotion. It's I believe that's the most important thing in a human being is the emotion. Without the emotion, we are nothing. We may as well be AI or robots. The emotion is so important, I believe. And I have learned a lot from following that. It's the emotion that's very important. And it's not the fight or flight type of emotion, although that comes into it too, because there are times, there were times throughout France where I do remember at one point 2 cars on the road that wouldn't stop following us in our car. And I thought, what are they doing? And they had decided that they were going to follow me, that they didn't want me around the area that they were circulating in. But I had nothing to do with them. I did nothing wrong and just stayed on the journey. But strange things do sometimes happen throughout your life, and you have to just deal with them.
Now, you write in English primarily, right? But you understand and speak some other languages. Is that true?
Yes, French and Spanish.
Have you written any poems in foreign languages?
2 poems I wrote in French and 1 in Spanish, but it's difficult because obviously the mother tongue for me is English, but French and Spanish, yes, I can do, but I believe that most of the time it loses some of the meaning when it's translated into another language.
Dante's Inferno is a poem written in a particular style with rhyming, but the rhyming was in Italian. But when you convert everything to English, it's very disjointed, and you almost need to go with you to say, well, what did he really? What's he saying? What's he meaning? But in Italian, I'm understanding that it's a very well received because the Italian mind understands the cultural aspects of what he's talking about. I remember the second time many years in between the first time I read Dante and the second time I was taking it as a class, and we had to spend more time on the different chapters. And anyway, and even then, many years of experience, I still had difficulty. And I'm going back, well, what does this really mean? So I put it into Google. Okay, I get that person's interpretation. Let me try someone else. So it's interesting. We have tools, and I'm sure with Chat GPT, if I wanted to take a blog and convert it into a poem, I could do it. But it's not my word. It's an artificial intelligence applying something to it. But in your case, you have your own mental and more particular, the emotional triggers that you want to push in people. And you got to, this word is probably a better word to use. And is that sort of the way you go about connecting with other people's emotions?
I think that's important, yes, because no matter what kind of poem I write, it contains a certain stream of emotion which is pertinent to the poem that's been written. And there's a story within that, with each poem, with every story. It's very important for me.
And I know in some languages, in fact, I'm reading a book now, and I want to say the 1200s, and in the context, they're saying the article was written in Latin, but in Latin, we don't have an English translation for it. we don't have an English translation for these words. I know in Greek, there's several words that stand for love that we don't
Yes.
have the same context in English.
No.
We can describe them, but it's not the same word. And so we have different language issues that when somebody writes a beautiful poem in Spanish or Italian or Russian or whatever, the native people can probably pick up that emotion so much better than somebody who is not as exposed to it, because there's little nuances in those words you choose.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. That's definitely the case. Yeah.
So when you're using a shillelagh, never mind. I was going to
Oh,
go
we're
down
going
that.
to Ireland now. This is Ireland.
Well, I think you're
The
close enough
shillelagh.
to have shillelaghs. There's probably not another word around for a shillelagh.
No.
Yeah, a club doesn't convey the same thing.
Oh, no, 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 no. No. You have to go to Dublin for that.
Yeah, so you have to have real clarity, I guess, and that's maybe part of my inability to see what I mean. When I write and I go back, I can change that, make it clearer, but I'm thinking about the awareness of my audience first, the education second, but I'm not even attempting to interact anything with the emotional aspect of my audience. Whereas your first is not awareness, it's emotional. You're telling a story, so the story becomes an awareness or an educational thing, depending on which way the story goes. So I'm seeing different priorities for the way I write nonfiction and you write poetry, and just trying to get my head wrapped around it so I understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, the poetry is definitely an emotional thing, but not all the time, not to the detriment of anything else I would like to say in the story of the poetry.
Well, tell me about sunsets and thunderstorms.
Sunsets and thunderstorms. Okay, it's all poetry, of course, but there are many stories there too. That has nothing to do with the dream or anything like that, but it's a book that I wrote probably about 20 years ago originally, and wanted to put it into the bookshops, but I kind of decided after writing it that I'd put it on the shelf for a wee while longer, because I had other books that I wanted to finish, which if people started reading those maybe first or whatever they wanted, then it would slot in. They would all slot in the same place together. But sunsets and thunderstorms, yes, I've got poems in here about wrecked ships and all sorts of things.
What's the significance of sunsets and thunderstorms, the two words?
Sunsets is a time of day when the sun, of course, has gone down for the evening and everything feels very calm. But a lot of people would say, yes, they like it when 6 o'clock in the evening or 7 o'clock in the evening comes, work's over, and they can just relax, and sun's about to set, we can go out, we can do what we want to do. Thunderstorms, of course, set something that maybe puts people on edge just a bit, because I don't know many people that really do like thunderstorms, but it's the contrast.
So sunrise and fog would not work well.
Maybe it would. Why not?
You have a game of scattered dreams. Tell me about that one.
Scattered dreams, yes. That a few of the poems in here were written because of places that I'd visited in France, but also Spanish Catalonia. In fact, there's a story in here called Mirror, Mirror, and we're looking in the mirror, and I was actually looking in a mirror just before writing the poem, in the mirror of a place in Catalonia. a sort of coffee bar type place. And I started talking to people, and I don't know, I started to learn more about their lives. They were telling me about their lives, and I thought, I've got to write about this. So I took the central character, was the lady whose husband owned the coffee shop, and I made up a poem about her. And it was, everything happened at night. Suddenly the coffee shop changed. There was nobody there. And I had put myself in the position where just metaphorically, where I was in the cafe itself, and the woman was there, and she was telling me a story about the people who frequented and had frequented the cafe for 200 years. So I had all this written down. I wanted to talk about it, and it's one of the stories and poems in Game of Scattered Dreams. But all the poetry in there has stories that go with it.
So you mentioned earlier you had over 600 poems in the rhyme, reason, and rhythm series. So with the other two books, you have well over 1,000 poems that's been published.
I have probably just about 1,000 poems, definitely. Yeah. But there are other poems I'm writing just now also. But they obviously, because I'm writing them, they haven't been published yet.
So you find it relaxing and enjoyable when you have the poem just about written and you know how you want to end it. Okay, fine. You've accomplished it. That's what I kind of go down this road. This is my mental outline. That's what I want to cover. I get all the way to, I say, is there anything else I need to do, or just wrap it up? And that's kind of when things, to me, feel good. So I'm guessing you must have a similar mental enjoyment at some point in time. It's not when it's published, because you've already enjoyed it prior to that. But as you're writing the poetry, there are certain levels there that are easier than others, or because it just flows. And then you may have some difficulty. I'm just trying to relate it to my writing when I'm trying to describe things. Okay, how I can say that, but I need an easier way to say. There's certain things I have to go back through my mind and roll around, and then come back. Okay, I kind of like that one. I can always change it, but that's good for right now. How much do you edit your poem when everything's done?
I edit it, but I try not to take too much out of it from the poem. I don't think I've ever written a poem that I've destroyed. But I do take the odd line out and put something else in its place, because I think, oh, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. So I put something else in the place. But
okay.
Yeah.
Same as me. It's just
yeah.
It has to fit with the rest of everything that's there. It just can't stand by itself. And where did this come from? So, okay. I'm trying to link your mental thought processes and production to a nonfiction environment that I'm more experienced with. And you helped me a lot on that one. Medieval history, European history. Tell the world about it. How'd you get involved with that? Why?
I actually got involved with European medieval history at university, but that wasn't enough to keep me interested in medieval European history. I think once I started to get involved with the people that I went to see in France, and they started to tell me things, show me things, and family albums that were maybe 600 years, drawings, paintings, things like that. I became very interested because of that. And of course, I always had the interest in people like Eleanor of Aquitaine. She was a remarkable woman. She was Queen of England for, many, many years. But she was also Queen of France for quite a few years too. So I became very, very interested in that, and her family, and how they moved from parts of France the Aquitaine region to Galicia in Spain and Asturias in Spain also. That was her daughter, and I followed the history and got sort of mixed up thinking about the Knights Templar that are fascinating, and of course the Hospitallers, and then there was the Cathars and all that sort of thing. So yeah, there was always an interest there.
And then you had a chance to go travel to those different countries. And most of
Yes.
your European history seems to be centered primarily in France, with whatever is touching the countries around it, Germany and Spain and
Italy. Italy too, also Italy. Yeah.
so what are the two or three real, I mean, if you had to say somebody who had an interest in medieval European history, you say absolutely you have to go here. Where is here at? Give me two or three suggestions of places that really and truly meant something to you.
Gosh. There's a place that I am interested in France, but it's more from the point of view of, again, it's mystery in the history, but it doesn't. Yeah, I would say probably Montségur, first of all, in France, because it was terrible what happened to the people there, and absolutely awful. And then I would take it forward to somewhere like probably Rennes-le-Château, because of the kind of place it was. I don't know what you know about Rennes-le-Château, but it's the priesthood gone there. Of course, he had been sort of excommunicated from Rome when he was fairly young and banished to the small place Rennes-le-Château in the foothills of the Pyrenees, really, on the French side. And yeah, he was, but for some reason he came into rather a lot of money, and nobody seems to know how he got the money. And there's a whole story there too. So he's just another interesting character in a long line of interesting characters. But there's so many of them.
Yeah,
So,
my favorite large city in Europe is Prague. My favorite
Prague.
small city is Ljubljana, which is in Slovenia. And I
Ah,
love both those two places. I've been to just about every place in Europe, but those are the
yeah.
two that I tell people, if you get a chance to go to Czech Republic, make time to go to Prague. And
Ah,
so I have a chance to share some things there. But when I think of other places, there are just so many things. Well, this place is really neat for this, and this one, and you get down on the coast and you have these things. They're just, what are you interested in? And that's kind of uh, somebody's interest in French medieval history is not going to be the same as in Spanish or Italian, because
yeah.
their interest is in a particular location or style or whatever it may happen to be. But
Mhm.
again, that whole historical thing there in Europe is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. European history is very, very interesting. It's,
And you've been
I
to
like
many
it.
cathedrals and churches over there.
Oh gosh, yes. Yes, many of them.
You been to the one in Chartres. Any others that really and truly impressed you?
Well, first of all, I have to say that the reason the one in Chartres impressed me so much is because it seems to be built on uh, energy lines, ley lines, that sort of thing, which encourage people, or rather, I think it's the church encourages people to come in and, you know, do whatever it is you want to do, film or whatever. I filmed in Chartres myself a couple of years ago. It's a wonderful place to film, but there's a lot of interest there. It's not like any of the other cathedrals or any of the other churches. There's a lot more to Chartres. Uh, of course, there's been lots of books written about it too, but yeah, it's a fascinating place. Went to Notre Dame in Paris also. It was lovely, but it didn't have what Chartres had. And there was Beauvais Cathedral, Reims Cathedral or Reims, Rouen, many others. Then there was a couple of the cathedrals in Spain, of course. and there was a few in Italy. So it's interesting to see what the church was actually doing at that time and how the people received what they felt they were going to be able to get from going to the
And those
church
churches
itself.
took hundreds of years to build, and then you had wars, and they had to rebuild some of them. My
Yes.
favorite one is in Ulm. My favorite one's in Ulm, Germany. It's called the Monster. It's the highest stone spire in the world, as far as I know. It's not the largest church. It's the second largest church, the one in Cologne, Germany.
Yeah.
But on the spire, you can actually walk up, and I'm not going to say you can reach up and touch the very top, but you are way, way, way up there. And that's something that a lot of the other churches don't offer.
And where's this one again?
In Ulm, Germany, ULM,
Okay.
Germany.
Oh, yeah.
About halfway between Stuttgart and Munich.
Oh, yes, yes.
So,
yes, I know.
so down in Bavaria.
Uh-huh.
Well, we're getting
That's
toward the
interesting.
end of today's show, and I know that when I started doing some additional research for today's show on you,
Yeah.
you are not the only Catherine Grant in Amazon. So
No.
So if somebody types in Amazon books Catherine Grant, how do they find you? What's the easiest way to find Catherine Grant's books in Amazon?
Gosh. Put in one of the titles of one of the books, Catherine Grant, and maybe Game of Scattered Clues, Game of Scattered Dreams, or Sunsets and Thunderstorms, and that will list all of the other books.
Okay, so Sunsets and Thunderstorms, Catherine Grant, and that should find everything. Because I typed in Catherine Grant poetry, and I got a few extra Catherine Grants in there, or Grants or whatever. I eventually found you, but I think, like you said, I had to use one of your books to get there.
Yes, I do that.
So your books are on Amazon. Any other places they're at? Do you have a website or anything?
No, I'm working on a website just now, so I think I'm going to have that up and running fairly soon now.
Anything there that Dr. Jacalyn's going through that you want to comment on or have her stop?
No, that's the books, yeah.
When do you expect your website to be done? Hopefully this year?
Oh, yes, definitely this year. Probably within about the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, real soon. Is it Catherine.com or is it going to be sunsetsandthunderstorms.com? Do you have a name for your website yet?
No, I don't. I have been throwing it about, and no, not yet.
Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead. You were getting ready to say something?
I had been thinking of a website, Calerva's Corner.
Calervas. What is a Calervas?
Oh, no, Calerva. The name Calerva. So Calerva's Corner would be the corner where Calerva, the character.
Okay, I'm unfamiliar with Calerva, the character. My ignorance. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, not at all. No, it's just a character.
Character in what? A character in what?
It's a character that I sort of used for a little while. The thing was,
your character. Okay. Well, again, it's been delightful having you on here. We covered a lot of things we didn't even touch on the first time we went in about Montserrat and other things that I utterly amazing. So, but truly enjoyed your time here today. I learned a lot more about poetry than I did before I sat down an hour ago. So thank you for that. Always interested in learning, even if it's in areas that are not initially, Okay, well, let me learn anyway, because you never know. And you never know when, okay, that little bit of knowledge opens the door to something else. And I think that's what we're here for, is to share and to be able to bring joy and happiness and whatever else to other people. And so I may run into somebody and they say, I love poetry. I could say, hey, you really need to see Catherine Grant, and I will do that.
Thank you very, very much. It was so good of you to be here today like that. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
And I love the accent. I just sit here and listen to it all day. So thank you very much. And I hope to see you again in the future. And good luck on your next books and on your website. And so this is Red O'Laughlin on the Corner Bookstore, getting ready to sign out. And very shortly, in about 20 minutes, the Wise Ones. I have Gail Stolzenberg with me today. We're covering a lot of topics for networking and for podcasting, artificial intelligence, entrepreneurism, a lot of issues there. Gail's known as the connector here in the Houston area. And then I have a show immediately following that one that we're talking about toxins today and how toxins affect your health and your longevity. So again, Red O'Laughlin signing out on the Corner Bookstore, and please join me again here on the top of the hour for the Wise Ones. Take care now. Bye.
This program has been brought to you in part by Zane Carson Carruth, etiquette and protocol expert, international award-winning author, television show host, and philanthropist. Thank you to Zane, our official diamond sponsor for USA Global TV and Radio in partnership with E360 TV. Zane is the author of The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever, as well as many other children's books. She's also the television host of Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living, seen on USA Global TV and Radio.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating warm memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
To learn more about Zane, contact her through her website, zanecarruth.com, ZANECARRUTH.com. Order Zane's books and merchandise. Contact her about being a keynote speaker at your next event.